Today we are talking about how to make your marriage feel chosen and cherished. And the first thing I want to say is why did I land on those two words, chosen and cherished? Those aren't by accident. And honestly, it's been about a year and a half in the making. It's something that's always been in the back of my mind, but over the last year and a half, as much content that I've been creating for Instagram, more importantly, the sheer volume of couples that I speak to on a day-to-day basis, sometimes 6, 7 different couples on a day-to-day basis, I've really landed on two things that people want to feel inside of their relationship. Number one is chosen. Number two is cherished. Whether that goes in that order doesn't really matter to me. Regardless, is a marriage, and the way I kind of say it is that no one leaves a marriage or a relationship in which they feel chosen and cherished. If there's anything that you guys can remember at the end of this workshop, leaving here today, it's remember that you build a relationship in which you feel, not so much your partner, because we all love to get something out of life, and we're all very, even with our kids, we push them to become doctors and lawyers and tradespeople and find a good relationship because we want the joy of sitting back and watching them succeed. So what do we get out of it? Well, they succeed, but more importantly, we get to feel proud of ourselves. And so that's why it's how you feel inside of your relationship, and how you want to feel is you want to feel chosen and you want to feel cherished. Now, I also believe that men tend to want to be cherished more. Women tend to lean towards chosen more. And I'm more than happy. I don't know that we're going to have a ton of time to talk about that opinion that I have there. But if you kind of do, if you start looking for synonyms for men, a lot of men want to be respected and admired, and you'll see it in my content often. But to me, when you respect and admire someone, it means you must cherish them because you must like them enough. And we're going to get into that later, I guarantee. But you must, in order to be able to cherish someone, you must respect and admire them. Women, on the other side, they tend to want to feel like they are good enough. They want to feel special. They want to feel like they are, don't kill me on the language, but they want to feel like they're the only prize in their partner's life. They want to know that they're the only woman that occupies real estate in a man's mind. And that's where I arrive on chosen. Now, I do also believe that we do borrow from both of those. So it's not just exclusive that men want to be cherished and women want to be chosen. I think it absolutely goes both ways on that spectrum. But this is the purpose of our workshop tonight. It's also really important too, because we're starting in January, right? And I want to ask you all, how is it going to feel after everything I teach you guys and after getting closer to me throughout the next 3-4 months for you guys to have a relationship by January 2027 in which you feel chosen and cherished, a relationship in which you never want to leave? Just future orient yourself for a second. How will that feel when you guys have created that? And, you really need to know that Meredith didn't necessarily feel chosen in our relationship in the early years. And I certainly didn't feel cherished early on in my relationship with Meredith. And yet today our marriage is better than it was on the day that we got married. And so I'm more in love with her. I think she's more in love with me, but I won't hold her to that. I'll let her answer that question for you. But I'm more fulfilled in my marriage and in my relationship than I've ever been in my entire life. And that is not because of a feeling that, just came out of thin air. That was just through sheer hard work and determination. And studying what I've studied for the last 10 years and working with the number of couples I've worked with over the last 10 years, I just want to say, if I can build a marriage that feels chosen and cherished, you absolutely can build a marriage or a relationship in which you feel chosen and cherished. And just on that note, when I use the word marriage, that references all types of relationships, whether it's a partnership, whether it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, fiancés, long distance, whatever. For me, that word marriage is just a catch-all. So please, if I use that, it's just because it's easier for me to speak throughout this workshop. So our goal today is to build Well, to start that journey, to start making those first steps towards building a marriage in which we feel chosen and cherished, I've already said that. The other thing that I've established is that if I can do it, you can do it. I'm not special in any way, shape, or form. I will say, though, when it comes to wondering whether or not you can build a marriage or a relationship in which you feel chosen and cherished, and I'm writing about this in my book, so it absolutely comes in the book. Will be published in November this year actually. But what would stop someone from believing that they can build a marriage in which they feel chosen and cherished? There's only two things. Does anyone know? If you guys want to type in the chat, what do you think would prevent you personally from building a marriage in which you feel, or a relationship in which you feel chosen and cherished? I'm going to just stop to make sure that I can go back and see see anyone. So if anyone has any idea what would prevent you or stop you, whether you think you can't do it, whether you don't think you have the skills, you can't learn well enough, whatever it is, I'm here to tell you that there's only two reasons why people don't build a marriage or relationship in which they feel chosen and cherished. Reason number one is they don't think they're capable. The second reason is they don't think they deserve one. And someone here is putting in wounds around abandonment, schemas, deserving. That deserving is probably the most important, but there's only two reasons why everyone in this room right now, low self-esteem, I'm seeing someone else type in, all of those are just buckets. The only reason why I don't think I could build a marriage in which I felt chosen and cherished is because I don't think I'm capable, which is hogwash because everyone is capable. The other is that they don't think they deserve it. And that deserving one is the most important piece. And the reason why it's the most important is because I don't know how many of you have children. And I have two of my own, bless their souls, as much as I love them and they can drive me crazy at the same time when they fight, which always triggers me. But when we come into the earth, and for all the women on this call right now that have had children, hopefully more than one. If you've had more than one, you know instantly that each child has a personality from the moment they come into the world by the very difference in which they latched on to you the very first time, right? So we can all say, now I have very strong faith, so I look to my faith for this. But whatever anyone's faith, belief is whatsoever, you don't need that right now. We all come into the world with a unique personality, and that is evident by the manner in which we prefer to feed from our mothers. My one latched instantly, the other took a little bit more time. They nurse differently, they switch sides differently. Everyone comes into this world with a personality. That personality that we come into the world with stays with us throughout our life. It doesn't go anywhere. It just changes. It patinas, right? So it starts getting wounds and scar tissue and whatnot. But deep down at the core of it, all of us had a personality when we came into the world, and we still have that same one. Now, so basically that's my argument, that we're all, wired to be who we are, right? So if we're all wired to be who we are when we come into this world, and this is my biggest argument as to why you are capable and, more importantly, deserving of this marriage or relationship that makes you feel chosen and cherished. If we are the same person today as adults as we were when we came into this world on day one, right? I think I've made a good argument for that. I don't think any of us could look at a baby that just came into the world and not think that they're perfect. Every child that comes into this world is perfect. Now, if that child comes into the world perfect and they're the same child, same personality, same person, 40 years later, I just turned 50 on Saturday, 50 years later, I must be perfect. So if you're perfect when you came into the world and you're perfect today, then it stands to reason that perfect people deserve everything that they want. which is why you guys hear in my content on Instagram, I always talk about wants. I never talk about needs. I'm not going to get into that in today's workshop, but that word need doesn't even exist in my marriage. And there's a reason for that, is because we build a marriage, a relationship in which we believe everyone should get what everyone wants inside of a relationship. And so I've already said that you're perfect when you came into the world. You're the same person because your personality hasn't changed. So you're perfect today. And now I've said perfect people deserve everything that they want. Well, then that's my argument for why you can build a marriage that makes you feel chosen and cherished, because you deserve it and you're capable. And you have to believe that. And if you don't believe that, then I suggest that you start affirmations, which are not part of this workshop, but I've done those in the past, and maybe I'll do some more content on that soon. But if you don't believe that you're truly capable and truly deserving of a relationship in which you feel chosen and cherished, that is the subconscious subliminal message that you need to talk to yourself about. And you can DM me. I've got tons of affirmations for that. But that's the work that you got to do, because you absolutely are 100% capable and deserving of this beautiful relationship that's going to make you feel chosen and cherished. So that's kind of a little bit of the introduction. That's my wife, Meredith, and that's Charlotte, and Aria is our youngest. So we're going to get into it. So who am I? Jonathan Van Viegen. I studied marriage and family therapy. I've been married to Meredith for 17 years. This is our 17th year. I've worked with thousands of couples, from professional athletes to retirees and everyone in between. And then this year, I just founded the Van Viegen Institute, which we're really excited about, because that's going to be the education institute and how I'm going to continue to grow this message. But that's a little bit about me. More importantly, what I want to get into is, why are we here? And so this is the stuff that I want to be teaching you guys, most importantly, because my first job when I left university, my undergrad, I moved to Japan. I was living in Tokyo, and I became an English teacher. And so I've basically been a teacher for my entire life. I really enjoy mentoring people, coaching people, helping people move through, back in the day, it was how to express themselves in English. And I had a classroom of 30 11-year-old boys that would chase me around the room. It was a heck of a lot of fun, but it wasn't very productive. Definitely not going to be as productive as this workshop today. But that's why I'm here. I'm here because I love what I do. I love helping people build marriages in which they feel wonderful about, which they feel whole in, one that they're proud of. And that's why we're here. But in order to get there, I've got to guide you guys through the process. So the first, and I mean, to give you everything, we'd be here for 3 months. But what I want to share with you today are ultimately 2 more theoretical things, which is why talking won't fix your marriage. Another one is going to be what creates safety, trust, and desire. So those are going to be more theoretical. And then I'm going to give you a practical, simple language shift that's going to help, that you can use tomorrow inside of your relationship. And the reason why I've broken it up into more theoretical and then practical is the way that when we become marriage and family therapists, you study theory first, and then they throw you in a clinical room, and then you have to go see clients. And so there was the didactic training you went through, and then there was the applied, the application, the practicum that you had to go through. And so I want to give you guys that. I want to give you guys real tools, but also the why behind it, because I always needed to know the why. And for me, when the why makes sense to me, then I can go out and apply what I've just learned. But if I don't have the why, you won't be able to, I won't be shifting your belief. I won't be changing your mind about your relationship. And I'll stop my screen share for a second just to kind of tell you guys a little bit of a story here. So when I work with couples, I will tell you exactly how it starts. They both come to me, whether, it's a clarity call where 2 of them are going to be on the call at once, or whether it's one of them and then they'll drag the other person in. Either way, at our very first session, I'm going to have 2 people sitting in front of me that cannot see the good inside of their relationship. All they can see is the pain. The resentment, the tension, the anger, the frustration, all they can see is everything that they don't want to see. None of them can see what they want to see. And so my job as really a coach and what I was doing as a marriage and family therapist, I'm really just trying to convince you that your relationship is better than you think it is. And the reason why I'm trying to convince you of that is because I know that the more, call it, traction I get inside of your relationship, the more I slowly get you shifting your belief about how you experience your partner, the more hope is going to come into the room. And I need every single inch of that. I need every single inch of you guys feeling more hopeful and positive about your relationship, because just by design, when you work with a couples therapist or a couples coach, you're coming just like you go to the doctor. When was the last time you went to the doctor and told them all the ways that you were healthy? When did you ever go talk to a dietitian and say all the foods that you don't like? Like, you don't do that. You talk about what you like, and then they help construct a plan, right? So it's kind of the opposite. It's like getting into an Uber and telling the driver, "Don't take me to the bus station. Don't take me to um, the hockey arena to watch the game." He's going to turn around and look at you and say, "Well, where do you want me to take you?" Right? So what happens when I work with a brand new couple is they come into me and they talk about what they don't want. They talk about their pain, they talk about the hurt, but they have a very difficult time seeing what they want to see inside of their relationship, all the joy. And so my only job is to help shift your belief about your partner and your relationship away from just seeing the hurt, the tension, the pain, the frustration. I've got to get you starting to see the good inside. And you'll be amazed. So one of the earliest assignments I give people, and I'll give you guys this now, is probably the easiest, most effortless assignment I could possibly give you that would probably move you up 1 to 2 points on your scale of 1 to 10 of relationship satisfaction, 10 being you're fully chosen and cherished, and 1 is the other end of the spectrum. Take out a piece of paper and write out 5 things you love about your partner that if they no longer did for you tomorrow, you would be devastated. Now, I can give you 2 right off the top of my head. Every single time I go into a session with clients, Meredith always asks me, "Can I get you anything?" Right? If she were to stop asking that, I would be devastated. Another thing is in the morning, I always wake up earlier than she does. And so I'll be in the living room starting my reel for the day, and she'll always come out. Sometimes she won't have brushed her teeth. Other times she'll have already gotten ready, but she'll walk right up to me, kiss my forehead, and say good morning. Now, if that didn't happen tomorrow, I'd be completely devastated, right? So first practical assignment, which I'm kind of giving you now too, but I'll give you this one anyway. Take out a piece of paper, write out 5 things you absolutely love that your partner does for you or about your relationship. 5 things. And then maybe at the end of the week, plan a date on Friday night and then just share your list with each other. And just see what happens. Watch as you share those 5 things, watch the smile stretch across their face. You'll be amazed at how simple this stuff is. Anyway, so I just want to get back to it. So I'm going to go back to sharing the screen. And yeah, there we go. So why are we here? So we're going to be talking about what not to talk about and why talking won't fix your relationship or your marriage. Then we're going to move on to what creates safety, trust, and desire. And I'm going to give you that one simple language shift. Now, before we get there, I just want to do a little quick pop quiz. So just as I read this list, I want you to just catalog in your mind whether you believe that this statement is true or whether this statement is false. And I've kind of given you guys a bunch of my views and whatnot, so you'll probably be able to guess pretty accurately. The first is, if we just talk more, things would improve. So ask yourself, do you believe that statement to be true or do you believe it to be false? The second is, would understanding our pain lead to a better connection with one another? I like that one a lot, and I kind of talk a lot about that in my content. Oops, sorry. Does intention matter more than how something lands inside of a relationship? If it did, Meredith would be like perfect, but sometimes the way she lands things isn't quite what she intended. I'm the opposite. I'm just I can be way more intentional in what I'm trying to say, but the way I make it land is just awful. God bless her soul. And then the last is, if they loved me, they'd understand me. So how many of you guys believe those statements to be true? And I think it's pretty obvious that I'm going to say that most of those are false, if not 100% terribly false. There are a little bit of nuance there, but I just want to dissect these for a second, because if you've said that they were true, the one thing that I want to say about that first statement, if we just talk more, things would improve. One of the dangers with talking is that we live in our conscious mind and everything becomes theoretical. And one of the big drawbacks of talk therapy is that it's just talk, talk, talk. And it's not actually change. It's not actually, we all are familiar with the expression talk is cheap. We need to see real change. We need to see behavior shift. Most people want the behavior shift. They don't want to talk about the behavior shift. The other one is understanding our pain leads to more connection. Pain is only going to get in the way of connection. So if I had a ton of pain in my relationship, I'd be avoiding it like the plague. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. How something lands is always going to mean more than how you intended to say it or what the intention behind it. Just speak to your kids or monitor the way children speak to one another. The way they land what they are thinking in their head is way better than adults, unless it's directed at an adult. But amongst themselves, they're all pretty good. The last is, if they loved me, they'd understand me. I can't understand you if we don't feel connected. And more importantly, the source of that connection is going to be how I treat you. So we're going to talk about that. So a lot of those statements would be, in my view, false. And the reason why is that most couples don't have a marriage problem. They have a language problem. And language is your best friend when it comes to your relationship. And you're going to see why at the end when I give you guys that simple shift. But when you look at language and a marriage, why they're so important, it's because language always has an impact on behavior. How I speak is always going to impact how you receive me, and that's going to change your behavior and vice versa. So I'm just going to let someone in. So we don't have a marriage problem in the sense of our marriage is somehow broken. We have a problem using language to our benefit. And this is why I go into my content on Instagram quite often. It's why I talk to you guys about the things like love languages, attachment styles, childhood wounds, diagnoses. I should have put that up there too. Why don't I go into those things? I don't go into love languages or attachment styles or your childhood, your diagnoses, for a really important reason. It's because that is divisive language. It creates disconnection. Love languages on their own. I love words of affirmation. She loves touch. What happens instantaneously is that we stop speaking the same language. We make sense of what we want. I'll say need for their benefit, not mine, but people walk around, I need X or I need Y, and I'm not getting it. And so when I'm not getting it, there must be a reason behind it. And I will, become this like worrier, this doomsday prophesizing, I'll lay out the breadcrumbs, I'll plan it out in my head that this is the reason why. It's all divisive language. And that divisive language does nothing more, in Meredith and my case, of getting us $30,000 into debt when we went to therapy in the first, I think it was like year one or year two in our marriage. And how that happened was she came to me early on and said, this is really early on in our relationship. She said, I don't think you're funny enough for me. And this goes back to her childhood wound of her father was the type of man who wasn't effusive with his love for her. And so what her and her siblings did was they created a lot of joy and a laughter around their dining room table because they wanted him happy. When he was happy, then he loved them. This is what was going on in their mind. And I'm a very serious guy. And so my childhood was traumatic. So I was always running for the door, running for cover. So I don't generally talk to a lot of people, and let alone make people laugh. Like I don't spend enough time with people to make people laugh. I'm in my own world, doing my own thing, learning what I'm learning to teach you guys. And so I'm a very serious man, and she's used to human connection being joking. And so she said to me early on in our marriage, I don't think you're funny enough. Well, fast forward a couple of years, and I just put my firstborn daughter down to sleep, came out, met her in the bathroom, and she had said to me once again, I don't think you're funny enough. And I was like, uh-oh, here we go. And that her saying that to me was like, it struck me to the core. It was 100% a crisis because she didn't know that she wanted to be married to me. I didn't know if she loved me. And so this was like this existential crisis that we both had to get our own therapist, who was charging like $300 an hour. Do the math on that. We were spending, $2,500 a month. And we did that for the better part of a year. And so we racked up all this debt, and we really hadn't gotten any further in our connection. There was no more trust in our relationship that this was the right thing. There was certainly not a lot of forgiveness. There was not a lot of desire happening. And the impact on that was I didn't want to make an effort. She didn't want to make an effort because we were both at a standstill wondering who's going to have the magical answer to this existential crisis that we were having. And it was all rooted in those diagnoses and those attachment styles and the love languages that we were struggling with. And what it wasn't until I finally started my degree in marriage and family therapy that I started learning a lot, and we had a lot of conversations, and I started applying what I did professionally at home. But what I really came to understood is that when you actually like the person that you're with, that is how you build the foundation of that chosen and cherished marriage. It all rests on likability. Okay. Now, let me ask you though, going back a couple slides, if I don't care how something lands, but I'm well-intended, are you going to like me? Like if I can say something in an awful way, are you going to like me? Right? If I bring up my pain all the time in our marriage, are you going to like me? Are you going to like talking to me? Right? If I say you don't understand me, therefore you don't love me, I'm not going to be likable to you. Right? So we need to focus on likability. And this is how we're going to do it. So inside of your marriage, there are going to be love, desire, affection, trust, all the really fundamental values that all of us deeply, deeply desire. The things that we deeply want. We want to feel loved. We want to feel desired. We want to feel like our partner wants affection with us. We want to feel like we can trust them. But all of that is going to be blocked. The true potential of that chosen and cherished marriage, I want you to see it as being blocked right now by a cork in the bottle. That all we have to do is find a way to uncork that bottle in that love, desire, affection, trust, that all will lead to us feeling chosen and cherished will come out. But we've got to find a way to remove the cork. And I'm just going to stop my screen share for a second because I think you all know what I'm talking about there. We've got to find a way to remove the cork. And I could spend 3 months with you guys telling you how to do that, but I'd have to move on to my next point. So I'm only going to give you one thing today. I've done 10,000 hours in my career as a couples therapist, now as a relationship coach. I'm going to tell you guys one of the biggest things that keeps that cork in the bottle is this. Uniformly, the thing that 99.9% of couples suffer from is an inability to say an effective apology. It is the number one. Like I've worked with couples in session where I'm just begging them, one of them, to say a sorry, and they both struggle to say sorry. And I'm going to give you the exact way to say the perfect apology. So this is kind of like another practical thing I'm giving you guys, but so you're getting a ton of practical stuff, but the perfect apology exists. It is super easy. I'm going to count the words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. That's all it is. It goes like this. I'm sorry for how I hurt you intentionally and unintentionally. Like if there's one skill that all of us just got better at, it's the perfect apology. I'm sorry for how I hurt you intentionally or unintentionally. My first career after I was an English teacher, then I moved to the Netherlands because I'm Dutch. My heritage is Dutch. I had a Dutch passport. And I started a business, like a dollar store. They didn't have, this is going back like 20 years now. They didn't have dollar stores in the Netherlands back then. And it was like, hey, you know what? I've got this brilliant idea. I'm Dutch. I had a Dutch passport. I could get access to credit and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm going to start a dollar store. They called it a Euro store. And so I threw open my doors. I got all my suppliers, and this one toy supplier sent me this shipment of toys, which I'd never bought toys in my entire life, let alone sell them for a higher price. But anyway, that's a different story. So the guy sends me all these toys, and half of them are damaged. I'm like, what crazy supplier did I just buy all this? I spent like thousands of dollars, had to pay him up front because they weren't giving me credit. And believe it or not, he actually came to my store and he said, Jonathan, don't judge me for the mistake I made. Judge me on the solution. So what I'm asking you guys that never left me the way he said that. And that's the where I came up with this perfect apology, is because all of us are capable of intentionally hurting our spouse or our partner. We're all really good at it. We know exactly which buttons to push. So we do that often, right? But then there's also times that we don't know how we hurt them. Wouldn't it just be great to say, I'm sorry for how I hurt you intentionally or unintentionally, and then shut our mouths, knowing that we could have hurt them intentionally, we could have hurt them unintentionally, and then we stop talking. And if we stop talking, 99.9% of partners, when you say it with that delivery, they're going to turn to you and say, thank you. That's okay. I know you didn't mean it. Right? That's the moment of reconnection right there. And then you're going to do what my toy supplier did, is then you can move into solution mode of, how can I fix this? How can I make it better? Or my second favorite thing is, how can I make it up to you? Right? So going back to why the cork in the bottle analogy is really important is because the language that you use either keeps the cork in the bottle, which is why I tell you guys that we have a language problem, not a marriage problem. There's nothing broken in your marriage, just like a child's not broken, just like an adult. And I reference this often in my work with couples too. I'm pretty proud of myself that I'm invited at every dinner table around the world. You'll never see anything divisive. You won't see any politics on my social media. You won't see any personal opinion about society, nothing. It's totally clean. And there's a reason for that, is because, you know, in our city streets in Toronto and Vancouver, because I'm Canadian, but I'm sure in the US, you have homeless problems. And all of us walk by that homeless guy, and all of us have the opportunity to look at that guy hunched over, you know, having just done his fentanyl. We could see a drug addict, or we can see a brother. We can see a son. We can see a friend, right? We all get to decide what we see when we look at people, right? So the same holds for your partner. You get to decide in your own mind when you look at your partner what you see. Do you see pain, or do you ever want to see a little bit of joy? Which is why I gave you that assignment a little bit earlier. Write down those 5 things about your partner that you love about them, because I want you to see that son, that brother, that friend, right? Not the drug addict. I'm not saying your partner's a drug addict, but I'm just running with the analogy there for a second. Okay. But it's your language that we use that either keeps that cork stuffed in that bottle that won't let out the trust, the affection, the desire, the intimacy, the sex, the kindness, the forgiveness, everything that we deeply crave, that chosen, cherished marriage. The language that we use keeps that cork stuffed in that bottle. How do I know this? Because my former clients, Katie and Ted, had this exact problem. Katie came to the session saying, there's nothing wrong with me. Fix Ted, which is like half my couples, and the other half, it's like fix Katie, right? There's always one of you guys are going to come into couples work thinking, if my partner just changed or improved, we would be great. And so instantaneously, that tells me right then and there that all you're focused on is the hurt and the pain about your partner. You can't see, you've lost the ability to see the beautiful joy, source of joy that your partner brings into your relationship. And so this is where that word source really comes into play, because people will see their partner as the sole source of their pain that they feel in life, whether that's career pain, financial pain. I had one woman who's, she had a falling out with her best friend and blamed her husband for it. And her husband's like, I didn't even talk to the woman, right? So it's, our partner isn't the source of all of our pain in life. They're a source of part of it. But more importantly, they shouldn't be seen as the source of our pain. They should be seen as the container for our pain, someone that we can offload our emotional pain. Ask Meredith. Anytime you guys want, and you'll get invited at the end of this call to be able to interact with her too. Anytime you guys want, you're more than welcome to ask her about the pain that I'd throw in her container. She'll talk your ear off about that stuff. But your partner should hold space and be a container for your pain, a place for you to put your pain, but they shouldn't be seen as the source of your pain. It doesn't mean partners can't hurt each other. And if they do, then I suggest they go back to that perfect apology, and then obviously not replicate that same hurt, things like infidelity, trust, and stuff like that. That's a whole separate topic. But more importantly is that our partner isn't the sole source of our pain, but they will be the container for our pain if you know, that's what they signed up for, and that's what we signed up for to be for them, right? But there's only one way in which you will not see your partner as the sole source of your pain, and that is going to be if you like them. And so this is why I wanted to come back to likability. And I think that's ultimately really important. It's a good theme for 2026, because I think in this world today, we don't spend enough time trying to like people for who they are. There's too much of that divisiveness and that scorekeeping and that anger and that tension, that frustration. And, you know, I like thinking my Instagram feed, what we do here, what I bring into the world is this bastion where all of us can be liked for who we are, because that's the way we should feel. And it goes to my belief that most couples, they don't fall out of love. They actually just fall out of like. They stop liking their partner. And this is really important to that piece about feeling cherished, because you would never cherish someone if you didn't like them, right? And more importantly, likability is what makes forgiveness possible. Like when you like someone, you're willing to forgive them. When you like someone, you are willing to be there or try to help them get their desires fulfilled, pardon me, right? But the part that people miss is that likability, it's a decision more than it is a feeling, which is why I say we shouldn't marry someone because, we're compatible with them, right? We should marry someone because we want to learn to like them for who they are. We want to get curious, right? If we just waited for this feeling of likability, we would never take any action in life to create that likability, right? So you don't want to wait to like your partner. You've got to decide that you're going to like them. My daughter today, as we were driving 3.5 hours, if any of you guys saw on Instagram, we were just at an all-inclusive for the last couple of days. I turned 50, so we went for my birthday. And then today we had to drive 3.5 hours. And my eldest sits beside me and she refuses to watch TV, which I don't want her to watch TV, but all she does is, for the majority of the car ride, talk about how bored she is, but she won't do anything other than listen to Taylor Swift. So I'm listening for 3.5 hours to Taylor Swift, which I can handle. But when she's in the car, in the seat right beside me, just talking about how much she is bored, but won't do anything to solve her boredom, like crochet or knit or listen to a podcast or an audiobook or anything like that. It's hard for me in that moment to want to like how she's being, but I'm not confusing with what she does with who she is. And I choose to like her as my daughter. I may not like what she says or does. And I think this is a really important distinction that everyone really needs to understand, is that who someone isn't necessarily how they behave, right? So it's really important to separate behavior from identity. And you'll see that in my content all the time. But going back to this idea that likability is a decision, what would happen if you woke up and you decided that you're going to like your partner? When you decide you're going to like your partner, you're going to look for evidence of the things that you like. When you decide you don't like your partner, what do you think you look for? You look for all the shit that you don't like about them. And trust me, you'll find that crap, right? You probably won't even need me to help you find it. Whereas if you come sit with me, I'll ask couples, what is it that you like about each other or about your relationship? And they will, they'll say, I don't know. They'll have a really hard time answering that question. If I ask them what they don't like, they'll give me a list like a mile long, right? So you've got to first make a decision in your mind that you're going to like your partner, right? In order to be able to go and look for the evidence of what you like about them. And the analogy that I use for this is Van Gogh was asked how he painted his paintings. And his answer, well, first of all, before I give you his answer, you have to imagine Van Gogh didn't need to know how to put ink on canvas. Like, he was a master painter, right? So that wasn't the issue. So what he said was, first I dreamed my paintings and then I painted my dreams. So what that means is he didn't need to, again, know how to put ink on canvas. He needed the image in his mind of what he wanted in order to then go out and make that happen. But once he had the image, then he could make it happen. And it just brings me back to this couple that I worked with, Jen and Daniel. One of Jen's biggest complaints was that she didn't think that Daniel was a good man and not good enough to be a stepfather to her kids. And I was like, what's going on here? Why, why couldn't he be a good man and a good stepfather to your kids? And she just didn't trust him because he was an avoidant. She said that he was avoidant. And so she put in her mind that he was an avoidant, and that he wasn't trustworthy enough to introduce her to her kids. And so she'd already made that decision. But what she didn't look at was the contra evidence of how he had made multiple attempts to introduce himself and to build a relationship with her kids. She didn't see any of that. She looked for the evidence of, how he was kind of on and again, off again with the relationship. And so she was reluctant to ever introduce him as a potential person that she was going to marry to her children. And that's sad, because then she ultimately was about to give away one of the most important, beautiful relationships that she could have. Well, what happened was we got through that, and I asked her, what would it take for you to understand that he's not going anywhere? And she said, well, he needs to actually make that commitment. Well, he made the commitment, and she'd made the decision in her mind that because he'd made that commitment, that she was then going to feel good about him and see him in a new light. And indeed she did. And fast forward, they got engaged, and I believe they're married. But it all comes down to a decision. And it's that dialogue, it's that language that we have in our mind about the person that we're with. If we see their blind spots, and he had blind spots, as we all do, but if those are the ones that we latch on to, we stuff that cork deeper into that bottle, right? So it's about using our language to uncork the bottle. So asking for what we want and seeing someone for who they are, not who we don't want them to be, that's the language that we need here in order to uncork that bottle. So when it comes to this chosen and cherished marriage relationship that I'm telling you guys you're capable and deserving of, capable of building and deserving of, I'm asking you in your mind to make a decision to go after that. And I'm asking you to do that using the power of your words. And the reason why I'm asking you to do that with the power of your words is because I know the power behind words. Words shape behavior. They always have, and they always will. And so when we go back to that perfect apology, imagine what happens to resentment, anger, frustration when your partner comes to you and says, I'm deeply sorry for how I hurt you intentionally or unintentionally. Right? It uncorks that part of the bottle, and it lets more of that love out, that light, that desire, the trust, everything that we deeply crave. So I'm just going to turn off my screen share there for a second. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm going to go back to the screen share because I think it's important. So I promised you guys one more practical piece of advice that I can send you guys off with tomorrow. There is one phrase that if you wrote any tattoo on your forearm, this would be the phrase. And the reason why this would be the phrase is because you have a choice inside of your relationship, and I see it as a choice inside of our home. And the way I phrase it is this. Meredith and I have 2 children, one of which is Charlotte. She loves horses, and she wants nothing more than to own a horse. And her riding instructor, Natalie, is constantly asking Meredith, when can Charlotte come? She wants her like 3-4 times a week to do riding lessons because she sees a ton of interest that Charlotte has in it and talent. So she's got this beautiful desire to learn, and she's talented enough to do it well. So Charlotte's always asking. It's kind of died down a little bit, but I'm sure when she gets back into horses, because we've been on break, she's going to be asking all the time for to do more riding lessons. But eventually it always boils down to Charlotte wanting me to buy her a horse, right? And I have a choice. I can use my language to say no and body check her, right? Or I could go to her with this phrase. And this is the one line that you can use tomorrow that is going to move you further up that scale, 1 or 2 points on that scale of 10, 10 being the chosen and cherished marriage, one on the other end of the spectrum. That line goes like this: how can I help you get what you want? So I want time with my friends. How can I help you get that? I want some alone time. How can I help you get that? I want more intimacy. How can I help you get that? I want to buy a horse. How can I help you get that? Imagine we all existed in the home that we live in with our partner, with our children. Maybe there's maybe we just had the holidays and there's going to be 8, 10 close family members. What if all of us just spun our heads around and looked around and said, oh my God, I'm currently finding myself in a home in which everyone exists to help each other get what they want. Imagine your kids grew up in a home in which they felt like their parents, their sibling, everyone around them wanted to help them get what they wanted. I mean, we'd have one political party in the US. We wouldn't need 2 because we'd all be on the same page helping each other, right? How can I help you get what you want? This single sentence destroys defensiveness. It signals safety. It opens the cork beyond no tomorrow. It's not it doesn't open up to sensitivity. It doesn't shut people down. It doesn't body check people. It simply just says, how can I help you get what you want? I may not give it to you. I may not run out and buy a horse for you, but I'm willing to sit here and brainstorm with you how we can help make that happen. Right? I want more intimacy. Imagine, I get probably, I don't know, 3 to 5 people DMing me every single week asking, how can they make my partner desire me more? How can I get my partner more interested in intimacy? Time and again, it always comes back to their partner has not expressed any desire to help them get more intimacy. All they do is avoid them or body check them or shut them down. No one's asking, even if I'm the offending person, not giving you the intimacy that you deeply desire, I should at the very least be asking you and me and us, how can I help you get it? I may not know how to give you intimacy, but I should be at least willing to entertain the thought of how I could help give you that, right? So if someone doesn't want to give you what they want, chances are they don't like you, is what it all boils down to. Right? When you like someone, you want to help them get what they want. When you don't like someone, you don't give a shit if they get what they want. Which is why point number 2 of today was likability. Grow the likability. Make that decision in your mind that you're going to like your partner again. Now, just because I gave you that homework assignment doesn't mean you're going to want to run out and like them again. That'll be all the work that we do after tonight. But at the very least, we want to learn to make the decision that we're going to like our partner again. Then we can go out and figure out how to do that. Right? And this is the most important piece of tonight. You don't need to know how to do any of this stuff. You have to make the decision in your mind to do it. You have to have the image of the painting in your mind, the image of what you want, and decide that you're going to go after it in order for you to then learn how you'll do it. If you haven't made the decision in your mind to do something, you won't look for the evidence of how to do it. You just won't do it. Right? So if you want that marriage, that relationship that makes you feel chosen and cherished, you have to decide to do it. Okay? So, that was it. So if any of this was resonating for you guys tonight, then I want to invite you all to join me in taking the next step and join me in the Chosen and Cherished Club. Meredith will probably, I think she's listening. It's absolutely free to join. It's over on School. It's part of my community. all you have to do is, well, and we'll probably send out a follow-up email, but all you gotta do is click the link and join. And we'd love to have you over there where we can continue the conversation. So that's it for me tonight, guys. Was any of this helpful to y'all? And were there any questions? I'll stop my screen share just to see if there's any. Oh yeah, Meredith just put the link in the chat. So yeah, if you want to join, I will say about the community. So there's two parts to it. It's free to join, but over in the community, we do weekly group coaching calls. Plus, I've got the DIY relationship reboot. It's my 5-week video program. You can get all that. That does come with the premium membership, which is $97 a month. And you can cancel that anytime. There's no commitment. You can join for 1 month, come to a couple calls if you want, but we meet every single week. There's like 1 week it's in the afternoons, 1 week it's in the evening. Meredith leads one of the calls too. So if anyone wants to be on a call just for women, Meredith leads that call. But anyway, the details are in there. But either way, you know that you can join for free. We'd love to have you. There is opportunity as well to ask questions inside the community. You can DM me and you can connect with me anytime you need to. So aside from that, does anyone have any questions? Is that clear and direct? That was easy. No questions. So Meredith, talk about landing the plane, please. Sweetheart, did you talk about landing the plane?
No, I think they're referring to how.
Thank you, Kathlina and Cheyenne. Is that, I hope I said that correctly, from Arizona. RK, very practical. That's awesome. Pamela, super helpful. Amazing. That's great. Hasana, thank you. So glad you love the approach. I love this stuff. So like, if you guys can imagine, I can talk about this. When we do the weekly calls, we kind of pick a theme. And so we just get more and more of this, and the calls are far more intimate. So you guys can always get in on that too. Michael, you're just asking, what do you do when your partner blames you in your childhood for your problems and makes you feel unlikable? So that's a tough one. So when someone's blaming you, odds are, well, twofold. The two thing, I'll give you something and I'm going to give them something. And coming from someone who likes to blame, like when one of my kids gets sick, I have to kind of reverse engineer who patient zero was, because I need to, like, in my mind, know who caused one of my kids to be sick. So I'm always looking for blame. And which makes Meredith, she has so many stories for you guys when you go on those group calls, but when that partner that's looking to blame, what's going on for them is there's probably been a big buildup of resentment over the years. And so, and I'm assuming, Mike, when you're asking, when your partner wants to blame you, it's probably, and you said because blame you in your childhood for your problems. What I would say is, because of that recurrent annoyance, frustration, they've built up a resentment. And so there's a pain there, basically. So, because in order to resent someone, there's got to be something that you need to resent them for, which is going to be a painful emotional experience, right? So in that instance, and especially because you're talking about it happening over and over again, if someone is feeling that emotional pain and I'm looking to blame you as the source of my emotional pain, what you want to do with that person is just have them write down the word pain on a piece of paper, or I have an index card. I actually use index cards, but have them write down the word pain on a piece of paper. And then ask them to take that piece of paper with the word pain on it and put it in a drawer. And then ask them to look at their hands and literally, like, look at their hands and say, now that your hands no longer hold the pain, what would you want to hold instead? Whether that's joy, whether that's me, whether that was a fond memory of our date last night. What would you want to replace that pain and resentment with? And so if they're blaming you in your childhood, basically what's going on is they probably have an overly saturated view of you and your relationship that's overly saturated in pain. So you need to help them find an off ramp for that pain. Otherwise, like anything I say to them, they won't they won't hear, right? You got to like wipe the slate clean first before I can start imprinting the joy and the positivity. So that little home exercise of having them write down that word pain and literally on an index card and put it in their sock drawer. I make couples do that all the time. Now, I said I'd give you something. For you, what you want to do is you want to practice forgiveness. And the way that you're going to do that, and you're like, what do you mean? She's probably thinking that she needs forgiveness or to forgive me. But no, I'm asking you to forgive her because that would be painful to always be seen as the source of her pain, right? Or your childhood is the source. So you're going to have to extend some love, kindness, grace, and forgiveness to her for implicating you. Because if you don't, if you can't show up with her, show up to her with grace and kindness and forgiveness around her attacking you, you're going to build a wall up. And that wall is going to make it really hard for you to execute that perfect apology that I shared earlier. But I also, Michael, I'm not saying that you need to apologize for everything, because if I were to say that you're the source of all her pain and you're the one that needs fixing all the time, I know that's not true. It's not accurate. Relationships are 50-50. So we all play a role, right? So, Linda, you said happy 50th birthday. Perfect. Mary, you're asking if there's been a lot of combativeness and a line was crossed with coffee being thrown in my face during an argument and a bit more, and we no longer live together, but he wants to figure out a way forward. And I do too, but I feel like I shouldn't because of the anger problem. I was not physically attacked, but very hurtful things were said over time, and there was the coffee incident. Mary, that could be a chapter in my book. And in fact, it is a chapter of the second couple in my book. An incident like that happened. So what do you do with that? Well, I write about this in the book, but I'll give you guys the preview to this. So there's two types of physical violence that happens in a relationship. One, my old supervisor used to say, is the cobra kind, and the other is the pit bull kind. Okay. And think of like two pit bulls. They kind of get more riled up and more amped up until it explodes. That's from someone who's got a tremendous, or from two people actually, but they don't have the brakes. They can't pull themselves back. They don't have the escape cord or the tether that, the roofers wear that they fall off, and they don't have that parachute, right? And so that's the pit bull type conflict or violence. You can work with that. People can learn. My old supervisor used to say, you can work with people that have done something where they just, emotions got way too carried away. They can learn to control that. On the flip side, the cobra style is that calm, cool, calculated, inflict pain like a cobra, hurt, physical violence, and then just continue on like nothing happened, right? That person you can't work with, right? That type of violence, at least as a couples therapist, as a marriage and family therapist, I would not be allowed to work with someone like that inside of a couple. That person would need to go out and do his own work. Now, someone who had done something like that, and I'm not excusing a coffee incident like that, obviously there would need to be a covenant of nonviolence, and that's a pretty violent encounter, not maybe physically, but it's still partially so. But there would need to be a very, like, a covenant, like this could never happen again, period. Then there would need to be individual therapy for that person, 100%, to control their anger. And then there would, if both people felt safe enough, then we could work as a couple. But that would be the way that we deal with that. So, yes, yeah, Michael, yeah, you would have built a lot of walls if you're always being blamed in your childhood as being blamed. We call that the identified patient, right? So you don't want to be seen as the identified patient in a relationship. Mohammed, you are saying, thank you. You feel there's so much truth in what I've said. Thank you so much. Particularly love the idea that we don't need to investigate attachment. Attachment theory is just a theory. It's not, it's great. It gets tons of engagement on Instagram. I always say, when you're sitting down with someone who could assess your attachment style, I want you to remember that they may have gotten a C in grad school. So you're like hanging your diagnosis on someone who may have just barely passed. So I have a lot of critique of attachment theory and first of all, if I get on my little soapbox for a second, and this is why I destroy attachment style all the time. Remember when I said you go to the doctor and you don't tell them how you're healthy? You just tell them what doesn't work in your body, right? So when someone sits down with a therapist or a psychologist, do you think they're telling you all the things that they do well or how great their relationship is or how wonderful they feel? No, they don't. So the person doing the assessment has only got half the story. Like wrap your mind around that, right? So someone who's meant to assess attachment style and they're only getting half the story, a pain saturated version of the events. And why is it that I can work with a couple, even the most acrimonious couples I work with, it doesn't take me longer than 5 minutes to find joy and connection and love and trust and desire in the relationship? It's because I look for it. You have to look for it in order to find it. But if you go into it like you're anxious, you're avoidant, you're not going to look for the contra evidence, and you won't help people. So, but someone said, I believe in deciding to like your partner and committing to finding the evidence. Absolutely. Everyone has likable qualities about them. Every single one of us in this room right now is beautiful. There's no part of people that isn't beautiful. A part of me is so sure sometimes that I can't like my partner, and even trying to believe otherwise feels inauthentic. So what do you do if you struggle to like your partner? This is a really good question, right? Then you got to take baby steps. And all the mothers here, they will tell you that children don't need to crawl before they learn how to walk. That's not true. Children need to first support their head with their neck. And then they get put on their back and they got to learn how to roll over. And then they got to learn how to prop themselves up. And then they start crawling. So there's like 5 or a dozen milestones that children need to go through before they can learn to crawl. So if you're struggling to find struggling to like your partner, try to find one thing that you appreciate about them, even if it's just one thing, right? I mean, the fact that maybe they're in this workshop with you, or maybe they signed up, maybe even if we both agree that our relationship is not fun, well, at least we have that in common, right? We've got to go to baby steps. Like if we have a real difficult time seeing any joy in our relationship, we really need to go to the baby steps. And we got to find one thing. And then when we found that, then we got to find the next, and then we got to find the next, right? But you have to decide to be up for the task. Yeah, and definitely fake it till you make it, 100%. But, going back, and Mohammed, imagine your partner said to you, I'm really sorry for how I hurt you. Could you hate someone in that moment if they said that to you in that way? because odds are not. Mary, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Would Cobra represent a true narcissist? RK, good question. Narcissist. I do not use diagnostic criteria and labels. If you've ever noticed that about my work and the way I talk on Instagram, save for two people, my dad and my sister are true narcissists. They drive me insane. My dad died over 10 years ago now. Could not for the life of him say sorry for anything. My sister she said sorry this year. Actually, we didn't go home to Canada. We were meant to go home to Canada for our holiday this Christmas, and Christmas got canceled because my eldest got sick with fever. And my older sister responded really poorly. She said, "Can't you just give her a bunch of Tylenol and put her on a plane?" And I was like, she's got 100-degree fever and we're going to go through customs and she's going to stand in a customs hall. Like, are you insane? I can't put my daughter on a plane. And she just responded, and she did apologize. I still haven't spoken to her since, one-on-one personally, but she did apologize. And I was pretty shocked that she did. But I would truly need a lot of coercion to see someone as a true narcissist. An asshole, I have no problem seeing people as an asshole. Like that, I'm an asshole. We can all do better, but that Cobra type violence, I would say sociopathic or psychopathic. I don't know the difference of the two, but one of the two. I think I want that feeling to be there, and when it's not, I panic. Mohammed. So you want that feeling to be there, but the other thing too is when there's not a lot of likability. Remember this, guys. If you're struggling to find ways in which you feel like you like your partner, remind yourself that you've lost curiosity for them. Right? And so you're not even asking yourself the question, what do I like about them? Now, there's a big reason why you've lost curiosity. It's because of pain. Pain blocks curiosity. Okay? So when I'm angry, I'm not curious. I stop asking questions. And so, going back to that perfect apology, I'm sorry for how I hurt you, intentionally or unintentionally. A really beautiful follow-up statement to make is, would you mind sharing with me a little bit about how I hurt you intentionally or unintentionally? You could just get curious about that, right? Curiosity is like the kryptonite to pain, and vice versa. If you're pain saturated, you won't be curious. But if you decide that you're going to get curious, what do you think it does to the pain saturation that you're experiencing? Victor, you said my wife has an incredible amount of emotional understanding. Sounds like Meredith, my wife. We often have conflict about me not understanding her desires and not acting in a way that she would expect. For her, it seems so simple to act on one's or our feelings. I struggle to show her in the same way. I love her so much, but she doesn't feel that anymore. How do you recommend we go from here? So basically Victor's saying his wife doesn't feel like he shows her in a language that she understands, that like he doesn't make her feel the way she wants to feel. So basically what needs to happen there, Victor, is you've got to future orient her. Because basically, if she wants to feel a certain way, you've got to find out from her what would be happening when she felt that certain way. Did any of you guys watch the movie The Insider with Russell Crowe? Great movie. Go and get it on Amazon Prime if you can. In that movie, Russell Crowe is a tobacco scientist. Okay. And like 30 years after I watched that movie, I never thought I'd reference it in my work, but I reference it all the time. In the movie, he's being interviewed by 60 Minutes. He's a tobacco scientist. He says, we're not in the cigarette business. We're in the nicotine delivery business. Okay. I'm not in the acts of service business for Meredith. I'm not in the words of affirmation business. I just did a post about this like 2 days ago where I'm not even ever going to learn her love languages. I am in the Meredith feels chosen and cherished delivery business. Right? That's how I see it. So you future orient your wife, Victor, and you ask her, sweetheart, if you felt like I was making you feel chosen and cherished, what would be happening? What would I be doing on a day-to-day basis that told you that you felt chosen and cherished? Just future orient her. Ask her to give you her preferred future, and she'll tell you. That takes curiosity, though. So you got to have a lot of curiosity. And Meredith, you're just saying to Muhammad, over the course of a relationship, feelings ebb and flow. Yours better not ebb, sweetheart. I'm telling you that. Just joking. And it's remembering that commitment is the most important thing, and the feelings will come back. 100% commitment is so essential. And Courtney, you're saying that's so important for all of us to know. Pain blocks curiosity. Yeah, and you know the in the work that I do with couples. So, like, you have two options. You've got other therapists where they're going to ask you about the pain. So if you guys go to couples therapy and you sit down with the therapist and they sit down and ask you, tell me about your fight last week, how connected are you going to feel versus when you sit down with me and I'm going to ask you, you know, when you feel cherished, when you feel trust, when you feel desired, tell me when you feel those feelings the most. What's happening? What have you done? Where did you go? What did he say? What did she do? Right? When we start talking about the things that we want, the path to that chosen and cherished marriage is far shorter than if you come in, week out, trying to understand why you hurt each other. All you're going to do is get a better understanding, but you won't have the delivery mechanism. You won't have the visual reference of what you should be doing more of. Right? You only have an understanding that nicotine is bad. You won't understand how to deliver it, right? So, well, actually, it's more the dopamine that was the business he was in. So, someone said, "Yeah, will it be recorded?" I hope it. Yeah, I think it's recorded. I don't know if it'll be. Sometimes Zoom kind of screws that up, but I'm pretty sure it's recorded. So. And someone said, did you just ask for more information about an apology if theirs doesn't really land or yours? Yeah. So when someone's apology doesn't land, and I can always, my simple framework for that perfect apology is to basically just shut your mouth after you've said, I'm sorry, I hurt you intentionally or unintentionally. A little insight into my own marriage. See, I don't suffer from defensiveness. I'm the least defensive person on the planet. I suffer from anger. I can be angry. I'm short-tempered, sometimes far less short-tempered than I was, but and I'm expressive. I swear, right? God bless my wife's soul, that she puts up with it. She, on the other hand, really struggles to own her part. And it comes from this place where her father made her feel like if she screwed up, she was unlovable. So when Meredith screws up, she really struggles to take responsibility for it. Now, for a guy who takes responsibility, I'm like, who gives a shit? Just own it and then we can move on. And for her, it's like the hardest thing on the planet to do. Until it was about 2-3 months ago, we kind of had a breakthrough and I was like, sweetheart, I'm going to love you unconditionally, regardless of how you screw up. You know that, right? And then that kind of like made it easier for her. I think she didn't send out an email, or she sent out the wrong email. I can't remember. And you know, it was just a bad, hot mess. I was frustrated more that she just wouldn't say sorry for sending out the wrong email. I don't know. I can't remember, but the best apology is to just simply say, I'm sorry for how I hurt you intentionally or unintentionally. And then don't say anything after that. Let that land, let that cook and bake a little bit, give them the opportunity to kind of process that, and then they'll come back to you, and then they'll tell you how it hurt. And then, but by you saying it in that authentic way, you're already lowering the pressure in the room. You're lowering the temperature because you're saying, I intentionally hurt you because I was an asshole, but I also unintentionally hurt you, and I'm sorry for that too, right? So, Courtney, you're saying it's so challenging for our angry partners to remember the good times and appreciate the little things in a day we do to make their life a little easier. Yes, if I had access to your partner, then we would be talking about that, all of us. That's exactly what we're here for. Since they are stuck in being pissed off and choose that over softening to what would they rather feel instead. Very frustrating. Yeah, Courtney, when a lot of us have been married for a long time and a lot of the pain needs some place to go, it's like a pressure release valve, right? So if you've been married 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to have more built up. There's going to be more scar tissue in your relationship. So ideally, you want a place for you, to express that and to unload that. But you want to start doing that not on your partner. You want to start doing that. The Chosen Cherished Club is a great place to do it. Come and join the community. It's free. Come to the calls. You can pay for the upgrade, and then do some of that there. But you've got to find a container for your pain, because if you walk around with too much pain, you will not have the ability to see the joy that your partner brings into your life. It's as simple as that. You need to put down the pain in order to pick up the joy. You can't hold two things in your hands at the same time. Kate says, what if you gave an apology that didn't land well? Then you just got to go back and ask for a redo, or odds are if it didn't land well, there's probably a lot of resentment, or they're probably thinking this is the umpteenth time that you've made this exact same mistake. So what you want to do is you want to say, look, I didn't do it perfectly in the past, or maybe I repeated this. Can we do my second favorite thing aside from writing down that word pain? Can we just hit pause on the pain? Right? So recognizing that we can't find a path forward when we're in pain. And the way I frame this is that when pain is stress, right? So any couple that's operating under stress, when you have stress, your creative higher faculties shut down. You lose the ability to communicate effectively. You lose the ability to access things like creativity, imagination, problem solving, because you're so pain saturated. So you need an off ramp first, or at least a pause from the pain, in order to be able to move on and redo that apology. So don't be discouraged, but just ask for a pause in the pain so that you could do the apology over again. What if you feel from them that you didn't get a proper apology? Do we tell our partners to apologize in this way? I would go to them, not when you want to practice that perfect apology. I would go to them at a time when you guys can sit down and say, hey, you know what? Let's just face facts. I'm going to hurt you intentionally at times. You're going to hurt me unintentionally at times. It's going to go back and forth, intentionally, unintentionally. We both do it. Wake up. This is 2026. We're in a marriage or relationship. Hurting each other is the potholes and the speed bumps that are never going away. Like, I don't know, we're from Toronto, but I mean, I grew up across from Buffalo, and anyone from Pennsylvania and anyone from Connecticut is going to know your roads are shit, right? And why are they shit? It's because there's the million potholes in them, right? They don't go away, and there's more coming next winter, right? So it's not about eliminating the source of the pain, i.e. the potholes. It's about how do you move through them better so that your head just hits the top of the car, and then half a mile down the road, you don't even realize you hit the pothole, versus that pothole sending you into the ditch, which is why getting better at the apology is the only worthwhile goal here. It's not the elimination of the potholes. So, well, we're only 1 minute over time. I said we'd go for 90 minutes. I feel like we keep talking, but it is a Tuesday night, so we should all probably wind down and zone out for a bit. I want to thank you all so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. We'll be doing this live again next month. That's kind of my plan to do another one in a month's time. Pick some new topics. Hope to come and see you in the community. Meredith put the link in there. Would love to have you. Would love to have you guys join, and hopefully on the calls as well. And I will see you all again. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Take care. Have a wonderful night. Bye, guys.